I just want to remind everyone watching, right? These islands are of great strategic interest to the United States.
They are very strategic. Whatever you think about, whether you're thinking about Ukraine and Russia, you're thinking about the Indo-Pacific and China, you look at the map and you go, my God, there are a lot of island nations out there between here and there. Who controls those things? And it turns out China has established a very, very strong control of a whole lot of the Indo-Pacific nations. So, you think, well, they're tiny islands, we just sail between them, but their exclusive economic zones interlock. So that you never leave, you're always in somebody's exclusive economic zone, which means that they have some control over what's going on in their area if they control their own government. And of course, most of them do not control their own government.
So what happens now with the Solomon Islands?
One of the things that I became absolutely focused on was reestablishing diplomatic presence in the Solomon Islands. We have no embassy there. We have a chancellery. That's new, by the way, just in the last 2 years. And it's staffed by 3 people. 2 of them are Army. So literally the commander up at the Indo-Pacific detailed a couple of Marines, I had said Army, the Marines, down to Honiara to help the poor one guy who's actually the diplomatic presence there. They still don't have the authority to issue visas in that office, and they need that. Functionally, it prevents the people of the Solomon Islands, who are our allies and who are grateful to us for World War II, freeing them, etc. The famous Battle of Guadalcanal. This is, by the way, the Solomon Islands is where Kennedy got sunk in his PT boat. It's right there, just a little bit north of the capital. So, we have a lot of history out there, but we don't have any presence, really, just a little first step there. We need to get an ambassador back there. And in fact, we need an ambassador in a lot of places over in the Indo-Pacific. So we need to have a diplomatic presence. We got to be there. If you're not there, you're absent. And China's there, and they're playing the game pretty for keeps.
And just to finish up on this point, control of those island chains allows them to project their naval power.
That's right, and it also works as kind of a wall against us. We actually will have some difficulty sailing even submarines past all these island chains if China's controlling the surveillance in those island chains. Think about that. They don't just go there and bribe and corrupt. They also set up listening posts and sonar posts and all this stuff, so they can track. They know where the deep channels are. They'll watch for submarines there. And by the way, it can also launch anti-ship missiles from the land. You never have to be out of range of a land-based battery.
I have to ask this question. We're talking about military strategy here. We're talking about, projecting power, but the Select Committee on the CCP, it's just about competition. It's about preventing those military encounters. Why are we talking about this?
Well, so the competition, goes from rough and tumble competition to empty the dugouts, have a fight kind of competition pretty easily, pretty quickly. I think we need to be there and kind of see if we can keep control on that. But part of it's just showing up for the game. Again, we got to have Americans there. We're doing a better job now having our American military presence in the Philippines, which we needed. And they want it. They understand China's a problem to them. And of course, in Guam, we do it. And the Commonwealth of Marianas, that's a territorial possession of the United States. So we're building up our presence there. Samoa. By the way, these islanders also enlist in our military at a much higher rate than the average American population. So they're participating in the defense of America, the greater all America, as well as, back home. And they have no representation at home. Once they get out, they do their 20 years, they get out, they go home. There's no VA, there's no diplomatic presence. They have to go to Papua New Guinea to get a visa to come back to the United States. It's crazy.
Let's switch gears a little bit. For a moment, let's go back to trade. And one of the areas that the committee has had a number of hearings about, it's something I've talked to Robert Lighthizer, former U.S. Trade Representative, about, and he kind of shocked me by explaining how significant contribution to the trade deficit was what's this called, the de minimis exemption. So anything under $800, I believe the number was.
Just not only does it just come in without a tariff, if you're in the de minimis, under the de minimis level, you probably aren't even going to get your package inspected by customs. So who knows what's in these packages?
Is this somehow insane?
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, the Chinese Communist Party exploited this massively.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And I mean, it was institutionalized how much they brought in billions, tens of billions of dollars of goods and not so goods to our country using this de minimis exception. What they would do is they come into like a free trade zone in Long Beach, transfer these huge containers to Mexico, and then just wait for whatever order to come to them. Then they just send it over from Mexico one off at a time. And it might be worth $10,000, but on the stamp it says less than $800. So shoots right through customs, gets delivered. It was a gaping hole. By the way, $800 de minimis exception was extremely high by international levels. The more common level of a de minimis exception is $100 to $200.
Right. Well, so now there's an executive order.
Yes.
To
just took effect August 29th.
Right. And so the question is, has it had an effect yet? No.
Well, absolutely is the answer. So there's far fewer packages coming over, and you can see that. I've read that, and I believe in your paper actually, that the number of packages coming into the United States is dramatically decreased. Now it hasn't gone to zero, but you have to ask yourself too: is Customs actually physically capable of examining every package internationally that comes in? Do we have the wherewithal, the manpower? And I kind of doubt it, frankly. I mean, before August 29th, we still had an $800 exemption. And now we've got a $0 exemption. That's kind of amazing. So maybe there's a happy middle ground, $100 or something, I don't know. But I'd love to sit down and look over that kind of thing and see what the actual mechanism is for customs inspection coming in with these shipped in goods. And I think that'd be a good trip for us.
Are there any plans to actually codify this into law somehow?
Well, thank you for that. It needs to be statute. I mean, let's be honest. The president's using sort of loopholes here to make these executive orders, and it really ought to be put in statute. And in Trump's defense, I'm going to say he looks at Congress and says, "Well, put it in statute," and we go, "We're shut down." So he gets impatient with the Hill sometimes, and God bless him, I do too.
A number of people have mentioned to me, I don't know how you'll respond to this, but a number of people who watch American thought leaders, people who read the Epoch Times, have said, frankly, this last month I haven't really noticed much change. Now that obviously there has been a big change. Government has been shut down. It had impact, but there's some people at least that are telling me they're not particularly impacted, and they're wondering about where all this money is going.
Well, once again, I'll give a little credit to Trump here. He found a way to pay the military this past month. That's a good thing. He found a way to do a number of other things to keep the government nominally open. But if you poke around the corners, you find there's a lot of people who are not at work. And by the way, my staff, on the Hill, they're not getting paid. And how long can they coast? So what we're seeing right now is sort of the evolution of a shutdown, how bad it gets. What we haven't seen yet is how much it costs to open the government back up. And it's going to be expensive. All right, shutdowns, here's something you can take to the bank. A shutdown is never the right thing to do. It's always the most expensive option. It's going to be lost economies. It's going to be plussed up money to restart everything. And when I say lost economy, we're looking at just the state of Florida loses $1 billion a week with a government shutdown. The state of Florida alone is $1 billion. I've been trying to find a figure for the whole country.
That it? Is that in transfers from the federal government, or where does that come from?
It's mostly lost economic opportunity. People aren't buying. People aren't being paid. They aren't buying. They aren't spending. And by the way, they're not driving down to Florida and going to the beach either.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's jump back to the Select Committee on China. Another area that you're interested in, you even have a bit of a background in, is this biowarfare realm. It's something a lot of people don't like talking about.
Yeah, I get all the really bad things.
Well, they're also very serious things, and we know as a fact that it's a central piece of Chinese military strategy is to develop very powerful biowarfare capability.
It really is, by the way, and I'm forced to read more about this than anybody would choose to read, except we need to know this stuff. So the truth is, they have a very advanced bioweapons program. It's not particularly safe. So they do the research in laboratories that are not well isolated, aren't well protected, hence the lab leak, SARS-CoV-2. By the way, people ought to Google just the term lab leak and of pathogens. And they see, well, there's a very rich history of leaks from laboratories of virulent pathogens. Bacteria and viruses and molds, and so it's a kind of it's another one of those stories people don't want to talk about. I was stationed in the biological warfare headquarters of the Army back in the 70s. Did research there as a bench scientist, so I'm familiar with this stuff, and because of that familiarity, I was given the bill called Pandemic and All Hazards Preparedness. PHPA PAPA Act to get in. The chairman of ENC said, get that renewed by the end of 27. That's when it times out. And so I take that very seriously. We need to do that. And we need to have a better plan for response to biological threats. We did not respond well to SARS-CoV-2. I think everybody recognizes that now. We can never do that again. And there are some things that we should be doing. And I have some definite ideas on that. I'm open to your ideas.
Well, you mentioned some things we should be doing. One of the things that there's a large body of voices saying we shouldn't be doing is gain of function research, which is kind of 100% of which has military application. I'm talking about, when I say gain of function, just to be precise, I'm talking about making viruses more virulent than they were.
I think
before,
that isn't the only gain of function that they can do, but that certainly is the one that make it. We say virulent, but you know what? Contagious. That's a word everybody understands. Making these things more contagious. That's not a good plan, especially when you're doing it ostensibly. Ostensibly, this research is being done so that they can study the virus and develop some treatment for it in case it ever, emerges in nature. Well, it doesn't emerge in nature. It leaks from the damn laboratory. And, so we're making our problems with this gain of function research. There is a kind of a split in the science camp about whether it's a good idea to study gain of function or to just outlaw it. And I'm not going to take sides, but I'll tell you that certainly it needs to be done in a BSL-4 level laboratory. That's the highest level of isolation. And I worked in a BSL-4 facility, and it's a very expensive, very difficult, time-consuming proposition to work in that environment. And it has to have a lot of protocols. So, that's why I think the Chinese don't put that effort into it, and why they have a rich history of laboratory leaks.
Well, bioweapons are kind of a strange thing because it's not like you don't want to have like a mutually assured destruction doctrine, for example. I haven't thought about this extensively, right? But it doesn't make sense if you have really powerful bioweapons. I need to have my very powerful bioweapons, or does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense, and because we have issued that we no longer make offensive pathogens at all for biological warfare, or well, I guess I won't go into chemical, but we absolutely do not do biological warfare. We do defense,
right?
And that we need.
Isn't just a healthy population the best defense?
Well, it's a great defense. It absolutely, but it's not adequate. I mean, because we know that the Chinese can tailor make pathogens that can infect just about any population, and I don't want to take too much of a dive down the rabbit hole with this stuff, but trust me, there are pathogens out there that will kill, I don't care if you're Iron Man or, the best athlete in the world, you can be killed with a virus.
And you're aware of these. I'm aware of research, but them doing research in these targeted, various types of these, but you're aware that they have already developed some of these types of technologies.
So we read the Chinese literature. I don't personally do it, but it gets read by our intelligence community. We read translations of it. And there is no doubt that the Chinese, People's Liberation Army has a biological warfare effort. They write about it in their own communications. So, let's try this, we can do this, we can weaponize this particular virus. Let's do some research on it. I mean, that's in their communication. There's, you talk about smoking gun. By the way, Russia too. And I can name names, but it gets down the. We were immediately in the rabbit hole there, but I mean, trust me, it's as bad as you can imagine bad. And these infections, once they're out, they're out. They go around the world. That's what happened with SARS-CoV-2.
It seems to me like the best defense for SARS-CoV-2 was simply being in the best health possible. Like that's when.
Well, and being young, yeah, that would be good. Yeah, so you don't want to carry extra weight, things like that. It was, it was lipid metabolism was the active toxic element there. So it was good for SARS-CoV-2. But remember, SARS-CoV-2 had not yet been fully weaponized. They were just studying it. They had just made it more virulent, more contagious. They hadn't gotten around to tailoring it to your DNA so that it would be much more likely to get a Caucasian and get an Asian. They could do that.
Well, that's important actually, because they're specifically working on those kinds of technologies that we know. Absolutely.
They absolutely are, no question. And they, by the way, they're gathering biological data on all of us. One of the most insidious ways they gather biological, say DNA sequencing on us is they run a set of blood banks in the United States, the People's Republic of China. Everybody who charitably goes to donate blood to one of these blood banks, they get sequenced and it goes right to China.
It would seem that would be something that we would want to shut down rather quickly.
Yeah,
or kind of repatriate or.
Yeah, so you think of all the Chinese corporations that are doing business in the United States that we would want to shut down, that we have not shut down. The Beijing Genomics Institute, BGI, comes to mind. But that's just an example. There's a whole lot of them.
This is a good moment just to talk about this reality, is there such a thing as an independent company in communist China, communist Chinese company?
By law, there is not. That's their law. You can't be. If they thought you were independent, they'd come get you. Hard stop. No possibility of an independent country, a company or corporation in China.
Are you referring to the 2017 National Intelligence Law?
Well, you're more erudite than I am on the law of the. I'm a doctor.
No, I mean, there's multiple laws I can think of that would lead to that conclusion. But yes, that's my understanding as well. It's my conclusion that there's nothing that's independent.
Yeah, we, by the way, took this up in hearing in the Select China Committee, and that was our contention as well. By the way, one of the things that's nice about the China Committee is it's completely bipartisan. We typically have absolute unanimity, D's and R's, on every subject. It's kind of nice. So change of pace.
Well, just going as we finish up back to this organ harvesting issue, this just strikes me as something that it's not even it's something that transcends politics. It strikes me like a basic humanity issue.
It absolutely is. This is human rights, writ large, and I think we're finally, swallowing twice and getting the courage to take this subject on and do something about it. I intend to meet with the chair of Energy, Commerce, and Health later this week, and ask to bring these acts to the floor with all due haste. And the China Committee has already taken this up in the hearing about the organ harvesting. Chairman Molinar, God bless him, is willing to talk about it. He's a nice guy, but it's you realize this is important. How many people do you think that they murder a year for organs?
Well, the best estimate...
I have my estimates. I want to know yours.
The best... I tend to go with the China Tribunal, 2020 China Tribunal estimate, which is something to the tune of 60 to 90,000 transplants. It's not necessarily bodies because of this ECMO technology that we discussed earlier. But that's, over the years, that's a huge number of people we're talking about.
Yeah, I usually just say 100,000. That's what our intelligence community believes.
100, our intelligence
100,000
communities,
a year.
I'm going to be coming to you for that report.
Yeah, I'll share everything we can.
Wonderful. Okay. And horrible.
Yeah, and horrible. I finally got NATO, by the way, to pay attention to this stuff. They used to be allergic to talking about anything in the Indo-Pacific. They were so proud of being an Atlantic alliance that they just put on the blinders and not look beyond that. And now the Secretary General has put as his second primary goal that the NATO alliance allies need to be assisting the United States in working more closely in the Indo-Pacific.
Well, that's also excellent to hear, frankly.
NATO's another hat I wear.
Okay. Well, I know I absolutely am going to have you back to talk about some more of these issues that we've just kind of scratched the surface on today.
Yeah, there's plenty there to look at.
Congressman Dunn, a final thought as we finish?
Well, first off, it's an honor to be here with you, and I'm somebody who's actually willing to talk about some of the things that I do. I can't exactly go home and talk with my wife and kids about organ harvesting. I get ostracized, but so it's good to have people who are willing to face the bad things in life and to take them up. So if I can help you in your quest, please let me do that to you, because I feel a little bit alone out here sometimes.
Well, you're definitely going to be hearing from me and my people.
Thank you so much. Great being with you, John.
Well, Congressman Dunn, it's such a pleasure to have had you on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining Congressman Neil Dunn and me on this episode of American Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Yanya Kellek.